Mary, how did you find carnivore?
Dave, the short answer to that question is it was about a year ago. So that was the summer of 2024. And I was trying to find answers to some health problems. And I was walking a lot and listening to podcasts and TED Talks. And in searching for answers to the problems I was looking for answers, I stumbled onto the work of Dr. Georgia Ede and Dr. Chris Palmer, and I got Dr. Ede's book and learned about the carnivore diet for the first time. And I really believed it would be a good solution. But as a dietitian, I couldn't imagine that it was nutritionally adequate. So, more research, and that led me to the very famous interview that Dr. Ken Berry did with Kelly Hogan. And I was convinced that I could do it, I could try it, and I started immediately, and I never looked back. And tomorrow, which is for your listeners, September 1st, 2025, that's my 1 year carniversary.
Oh, wow, congratulations.
Thank you.
Um, so, I mean, I've got many questions based on that. But I guess the first one is what were the things that were leading you to the point you sought out Georgia Eads' book and Chris Palmer's information?
Sure. I have a lifelong history of depression. It has been medication resistant, so I've always just kind of managed, kind of bumbled through life, through highs and lows, especially in the dark season. I suffered from seasonal affective disorder. Uh, I would have been happy to go to bed in October and get up in April. I did manage to function. I raised children alone and cared for elderly parents, and I held jobs. But there was always just this sort of low grade depression. So that's a little backstory. Um, in the fall of 2023, I had COVID twice in 7 weeks. And at the beginning of 2024, I was full blown into long COVID. So seeking help for my long COVID, I found a functional medicine doctor and fully embraced whatever she offered. So I did it all. I did hyperbaric oxygen. I did ozone therapy. I did pulsed electromagnetic fields therapy, PEMF. I did high dose vitamin infusions. I did glutathione infusions. Took handfuls of supplements. And leading up to that time, I had been mostly keto off and on for over a decade. And when my functional medicine doctor learned that, she said, "So you don't eat fruits and vegetables?" I said, "Not really, not much." And she said, I really need you eating, what we think of as a balanced diet." So I did. I started eating, again, what most people would think of as a healthy diet. Fruits, vegetables, just the mix of things. And I really enjoyed it because those were foods I hadn't eaten for in over a decade. My COVID symptoms did improve. I didn't really get well, but I got better. But when the summer approached, again, this we're talking the summer of last year, 2024, I found myself in one of the worst depressive episodes I'd ever had. So I had a very demanding job at the time, and I quit my job to focus on my health. And my youngest daughter had graduated from college and gotten married early in the summer, and I felt like it was the right opportunity for me to pursue something that had been a dream for a long time, which was working in a medical mission field, on the foreign mission field. But I hit a roadblock immediately, which was my type of depression was an automatic disqualifier, as in, don't even apply. So this is why I started looking for answers. I was looking for answers to my long COVID. I still had some lingering symptoms, and I was looking for answers to heal my depression. I just believe that in 2024, surely somebody had an answer to how to actually heal what was wrong in the brain with depression as opposed to just medicating it. During the summer, as I was, um, the one thing I was able to make myself do during this state of depression was walk. I knew I needed to at least get out of bed and walk. So I was walking for an hour and a half or so every day, and I was constantly searching for podcasts addressing the issue of how do I heal depression? How do I heal long COVID? So there were several. I listened to Diary of a CEO. I listened to Andrew Huberman. I listened to TED Talks, always searching for topics related to depression and long COVID. So I don't recall the exact sequence or exactly who I heard first, but if you listen to Georgia Ede and Chris Palmer, you'll hear about the carnivore diet.
And so you decided, okay, well, nothing else is working. I'm going to give carnivore a try. You start carnivore, and what happens?
Right. Um, so as I mentioned, I had done keto off and on for over a decade, and I had done that because many years ago I was told I had arthritis in my spine, and I knew that um, carbohydrates were inflammatory. So I just started it for that. I don't think I was ever in a therapeutic level of ketosis for very long. But I definitely knew what ketosis was. So when I heard about carnivore and decided that, yep, it could be nutritionally adequate, I could do this, it wasn't radically different from what I had done for a decade. It was different. I definitely did dirty carnivore, for sure, dirty carnivore. Um, but it wasn't unusual for me to have a meal that was just animal products. So September 1st last year, I started doing that. I was a little arrogant about it because I thought, I'm not going to have any keto flu. I've done keto before. All I ever had before going into ketosis was just a little headache here and there. But for the first 2 weeks, I had massive fatigue. And that was layered on top of this existing depressive episode. So I struggled to even get out of bed for the first 2 weeks.
So, and given that, was there any point you felt like, oh, I've made a mistake here?
Oh, no, not at all. I was convinced that it was the right thing to do. And I spent that time researching, constantly researching. Again, I'm a dietitian. I was out of practice for many years, but I understand biochemistry and always loved it. So I spent those 2 weeks just researching and listening to podcasts of people's experiences and digging deep into the biochemistry. I love listening to Ben Bickman and um, just everything that's out there that explains the biochemistry behind it. So I knew it was the right thing to do, and I just had to find the answer. So, of course, I searched fatigue and carnivore and discovered that I probably needed more electrolytes. So I concocted my own electrolyte solution, and that did the trick. That helped with the fatigue.
Right. And the depression started to clear?
It did. Can't give you an exact timeline, but it was pretty soon. Yeah, it started to lift. And for the entire winter last year, I had no seasonal affective disorder. Once it was gone, it was gone.
And was that the only change you noticed, or was there anything else that kind of made you feel, I'm on the right track now?
Oh, absolutely. Um, like I had always been thin until I had my children. But like many women, after I had my children, I struggled with my weight. And in the last year, I've dropped 35 pounds. So for your international listeners, that is 16 kilos or 2.5 stone. And it just melts off. I didn't have to try to lose it. In fact, I have to sort of track what I eat to make sure I eat enough. Yeah, so I lost weight. Um, I'm confident that I was insulin resistant. As I've looked at my success on this, I have reflected back over my history and my family history. My mother was obese. She died from Parkinson's. Um, she had sisters who were obese, diabetic. I had a cousin who died from ovarian cancer, another one who died from colon cancer. We now know that all of those are metabolic diseases. We didn't call it metabolic syndrome back then, but clearly it was there. And of course, your mitochondrial DNA is inherited from your mother. So if you have a tendency towards obesity and insulin resistance in your mother's family, then you have inherited that DNA. So the first clue for me was my first child weighed 10 and a half pounds when he was born, which is around 5 kilos. So the question arose, had I had gestational diabetes and it went undiagnosed? Probably. So with my next pregnancies, they did a glucose tolerance test, and I did, in fact, have mild glucose intolerance. But after my pregnancies, my blood sugar was always fine. Of course, we now know that you can have normal blood sugar for even decades while your insulin is raging out of control and you have insulin resistance. So I think that's probably what happened. Yeah. So I'm confident that even though my insulin was never measured when I was 35 pounds overweight, I'm pretty confident I had insulin resistance. Yeah.
And didn't the idea of carnivore kind of go against everything you've ever learned, given you're a dietitian?
Right. Um, so just a little more backstory there. As a young dietitian out of college, I worked almost exclusively with the diabetic population. I worked in a hospital in the acute setting and did everything that comes with that, educating new patients and then re-educating them when they came in with complications, re-educating them when they went on dialysis, calculating their tube feedings or their intravenous feedings when they had amputations. Um, then weeping when I would walk in the mornings and their rooms would be dark and silent and empty. And then I worked for a while in the outpatient clinic with the same endocrinologist. So um, I reached the point that I was really disillusioned and discouraged because nobody ever got better. Of course, now we know it's because we were teaching the wrong thing. Um, so I lost my husband young, and had 3 children to raise and parents to take care of. And at the time that my husband died, it was time for me to renew my continuing education. So dietitians have to have 75 hours of continuing education every 5 years, and my reporting period for that 5 years was up. And I was just overwhelmed with grief, overwhelmed with responsibility. And I had been living overseas, so I didn't have any of my hours accumulated. So I needed to get 75 hours and fast. And I just made the decision to let my registration lapse. I didn't see ever practicing again. I had lost my passion for it because, as I said, nobody ever got better. Um, so I was out of the field for a long time. Um, so fast forward, once I found carnivore, as I said, when I first heard about it, I thought, how could that possibly be nutritionally adequate? But as I listened to stories and I learned about Maggie Smith in Canada, who's been carnivore for 65 years, and Kelly Hogan, who is clearly the picture of health, and she's done it now for over 15 years. Uh, and again, as I began to learn more, I really love the biochemistry. I love the science behind it. So I just took a really deep dive, and figured out that everything I had ever taught was wrong, and that this was, in fact, nutritionally adequate, better than nutritionally adequate. So So to answer your question, yes, it went against everything I was ever taught, but I knew that everything I had taught people along the way didn't help anybody. We've ended up with an epidemic of obesity and heart disease and autoimmune disorders and dementias. And it's all because we were teaching the wrong thing all along.
And so, have you since renewed your license? Have
I
you?
have.
So now are you kind of the registered or licensed dietitian that's kind of going against the grain, literally and figuratively?
I am the carnivore RD. That is that's my website, and that's my brand. So in the fall, when I saw what a difference it was making in my own health and saw what a difference it was making in the health of people worldwide, I suddenly found my passion again for reinstating my registration. I had thought about it off and on. As I said, I raised children alone, and I was fortunate to be able to stay home with them when they were young. Children, of course, get more expensive as they get older. The cost of diapers gets replaced with car insurance and college educations. And when I needed to start generating income, of course, the first thing I thought of was reinstating my registration. And at one point, I even ordered an expensive review course, and it just sat there. I could not motivate myself to do it because I just had no passion. I just was so discouraged from my first years in the profession that I just couldn't do it. So for several years, I worked other kinds of jobs. But when I saw the difference that carnivore was making in people's lives, I knew I had to reinstate my registration. So I spent the winter of 2024 and 2025 studying to take the exam. It is a big deal. Dietitians have to know not just what we think of as nutrition, but it's a very broad knowledge base. We have to know food science. We have to know food service systems. We have to know food service management. We have to know what you would think of as public health. We call it community nutrition. It's the government food programs. And in the 20 years that I'd been out of the profession, we have diseases that didn't exist when I first took the exam. We have medications that didn't exist. So it was a lot. I had to review everything I learned the first time and then learn everything that's happened in the last 2.5 decades. So yeah, I spent my winter doing that and passed the exam in the spring and set up a private practice. And the carnivore diet is the only diet I support. So
Wow.
if a physician were to refer a patient to me and tell me they wanted some other diet, I would have to say, I'm sorry, you'll need to find somebody else because I am so convicted that this is the right way to heal metabolic health that I won't support anything else.
Yeah. And I mean, especially when you've been at the coalface and you've watched people not get better and not get better for so long that it was, it just it led to, as you say, walking in and seeing the light switched off in someone's room, kind of thing. Um, it's that really that kind of strengthens your resolve as well, right? Because this thing works, that thing never did.
Absolutely. And I always had such a passion to help people. I love teaching, and that's what clinical dietitians do. We teach patients how to be healthy. Mm-hmm. So
Yeah,
it was sad to teach patients and then not see any results.
yeah.
So I really could not wait to get my practice open. I was so excited. Now that we have exams that are digital, you know immediately if you've passed or not.
Oh,
So
okay.
so I had the answer immediately, and I was just so excited to walk out of that testing center to my car, knowing I could open the doors of my practice and actually start working with patients and helping them.
Wow. So, and you've been able to get a client base who are interested in doing carnivore? Like, do they come in and say, "Look, please, as a dietitian, please help me," and when you tell them, "Okay, well, we're going to do this carnivore eating plan," and they're like, "Huh? What?"
If they come to me, they know that that's what I do. So they come to me wanting to do it or wanting more information about it. Mm-hmm. So, most of the time, there are millions of people around the world doing this without the help of a dietitian, right? A dietitian is helpful when you have somebody who has complicated diagnoses, multiple diagnoses, they're on medication, um, especially medication for blood pressure, blood sugar, mental health disorders, autoimmune disorders. So a lot of times they just need that medical professional who can walk through it with them. A lot of times they're not quite sure how to start, and everybody is an individual. I start patients based on where they are today, and a lot of times you ask your guests, what would you advise somebody starting carnivore? Should you go just sort of cold turkey, jump in and do it, or go more gradually? That certainly depends on the patient. For example, if they've had a high oxalate diet, I'm going to want them to come down off those oxalates very slowly. Um, so if they have, again, if they're on medications, I am going to want them to approach this more slowly because they will get better. Once they hit that day one of I am 100% carnivore, they will get better and their need for medication will drop rapidly. It's just good to have somebody to, don't want to say hold their hand, but to walk that journey with them.
Yeah, I think that's important. Like one of the most common stories I hear from people are like having a hypo episode because the medication didn't get reduced, or their blood pressure going way too low, or something like that, because they were getting better, but the medication was also still there.
Right. Yeah. So I want patients to be able to monitor their blood pressure if that's what they're on medication for. If they are on medication for blood sugar, they should already be checking blood sugars or wearing a CGM, um, continuous glucose monitor. And I'm I'm going to want them to do that regularly, and I want them checking ketones as well. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
it's just an important part. It's um, for people who are not under the care of a doctor or not on medication, just depending on what their goals are, they may not need that constant monitoring. But dietitians are medical professionals. When you come to me, I am going to treat you as I would if we were in a hospital setting or an outpatient clinic setting, and monitoring your glucose and monitoring your ketones are part of your medical plan.
Mm. Yeah. So on your situation, how are you eating day to day? What's your menu plan?
About 95% of what I eat is grass finished chuck roast. I cook it in an instant pot, uh, 25 minutes per pound. The best thing in the world is when it's fresh and hot from the instant pot. So I'll have a meal then. And then I put it in the refrigerator. And after that, I eat it cold until it's gone. Um, do eat some eggs. I eat bacon. Um, I eat sardines. I don't like them, but I eat them.
I think there's a lot of people on that team.
Mm-hmm. They're just, the world is kind of obsessed with superfoods, and sardines are definitely the carnivore superfood. So, yeah.
Yeah, so it's just yeah. I'm also the. I think the taste is okay, but it's just the messiness, the smell, there's just too many negatives about it. But yeah, so it's like cover the nose and um
Yeah, for me, it's the texture. You know, I have no trouble conceptually with eating the bones and the skin and the fins and everything that's in there, but I just don't want to feel it. So sometimes I will make sort of the equivalent of tuna salad, but it's sardine salad. So I'll put some boiled eggs in there, and I'll mix in a lot of beef tallow, um, and that can help. But sometimes if
Nice.
I don't feel like making all that, I'll just suck it up and eat them.
So, you're eating those things as like a 2 meal a day plan, 3 meal a day plan?
I do try to do time restricted eating, what some people call intermittent fasting. Um, I try to do about 2 meals a day. I like the idea of 1 meal a day, but I cannot get enough food in 1 meal a day. I just get too full. So usually two. I'm not very regimented. I try to eat between noon and 6, or maybe 10 and 4. Uh, yeah, but I'm not. I also have some flexibility in there. If there's a family dinner with my adult children and they want to have dinner later in the day, I do that.
Hmm.
So I have my general guidelines, but I'm also flexible.
So, how are family and friends with this? Do they think you've gone off the deep end?
No, my children saw me do keto for you know a decade, so they just kind of think, oh, it's mom's on another diet. um, they they like the weight loss that they've seen. They're impressed with that. They certainly don't challenge me on it. They certainly support it, but they're not going to do it themselves. uh, yeah, and uh, I don't know that they really understand, again, the biochemistry behind it, how serious it is in terms of taking care of one's health. And I want to age well. I took care of elderly parents, and there was a lot of care involved because they were not healthy. So it's very important to me to age well. I'm not so concerned about longevity. Any of us could get hit by a truck today. I buried a husband when I was 38 years old. uh, but I want to live well while I live. So, uh, I focus a lot on mitochondrial health. So not just the diet, but all of the other things that go with mitochondrial and metabolic health: sun exposure, and exercise, and cold exposure. Again, the fasting, the intermittent fasting, all of those things. So my children appreciate that, and they appreciate my desire not to be a burden on them as I age. I did learn very early on not to try to force anything on family or friends. Back in my early days as a dietitian, I had family members who always knew more than I did about nutrition. They always wanted to tell me what they knew, and they would push back if I tried to offer something different. So I learned to just let it go. So I talk about it because it's my life. It is both my profession and what I do in my private life. So I talk about it, and they know that. But I don't ever, I don't ever tell a friend or family, you should do this, or it would help you if you would do this. They know I'm here. I'm doing it. They're welcome to ask. I will offer whatever they want to know, but I don't push it on them.
Right. Yeah. So you mentioned cold exposure. Does that mean you're doing cold plunges and things like that?
I have done some cold plunges, like the sardines. I don't like it, but I do it. I don't do it as often as I would like to. I live in the South. I do not like the cold in any way, shape, or form, and especially getting into a cold tub just is not exciting for me. But I have done it. I do it. It's always in my mind that I should do that today.
When you do it though, you feel better afterwards?
Oh yeah, there's absolutely a high afterwards. It's just that I haven't reached the point that I'm addicted to the high enough to motivate me to do it very often. I do play funny songs when I do it. I play things like Ice Ice Baby or Cold or um, Warrior. So all of those songs are going to be a little over 3 minutes long, right? So I turn those on and you know, so that's kind of how I humor myself through it.
Yeah. And I just have to say thank you because now you've got that Vanilla Ice song stuck in my head for the remainder of the
You're
day.
welcome.
And it's 8 o'clock on Monday morning here, so it's going to be with me all day.
You're welcome.
um, so you talked already about like how you would recommend people transition in or go as quickly and as their situation provides. Um, some people, if they have been eating a lot of oxalates, are going to struggle to go too quickly into it, right? Um, do like what kind of results have you seen with other people? Like, are people coming back and saying, "Oh, my diabetes is getting better, my A1C is getting better," that kind of thing?
Oh, absolutely.
Hmm.
Um, Weight loss. Um, yeah. My approach is do it for 30 days. Okay. If you're on the fence about whether to do this, do it for 30 days. Anybody can do anything for 30 days. Just try it. And once people do it for 30 days, they don't ever want to go back. So yeah, people are happy with their results. But again, I mean, my my clientele is metabolically sick. So they're very happy to start feeling better. Yeah.
I think the I don't know if you can call it the good thing or the cool thing or something, but the advantageous thing about this way of eating when someone is very metabolically sick is they're going to see results very, very quickly. Like
Yes.
if you weigh 600 pounds, that the weight that you lose is going to happen very quickly and be very noticeable. So it's quite motivating to stick with it, right?
Right. And most of these people have tried everything. They've literally tried everything except carnivore. People come to the carnivore diet, and you know this, your guests, um, they come to it desperate to feel better. And, that's where I was. I had suffered with depression for decades. And then long COVID, um, I was desperate to feel better. So I was willing to try almost anything. Like I said, my functional medicine doctor wanted me to try, and I just blindly said, sure, whatever. You tell me what to do, I'll do it. Uh, yeah. So by the time people get to me, most of the time they are desperate and they will try anything.
Yeah.
What's
So
funny though, I'm sorry. You ask about family and friends. I do have some friends who are quite sick and they know about this and they're still just not ready to take the plunge. And I don't know why the resistance, but you know, if you get desperate enough, you'll do anything.
yeah, I I always feel the resistance is something like you don't you, you don't ever know what it's going to feel like until you actually take the plunge. It's like you're standing on that diving board really high up, and you've never dived off a diving board before, and it just feels, or you're about to skydive, and it just feels like there's just no way I can do it. I can't take that step.
Mm-hmm.
But if you finally build up enough courage or resolve or whatever's needed to take that first step, then you realize, wow, this feels awesome. This feels amazing, and you can't wait to go and do it again. but it's just getting to the point where you can take that first step. I think that's what it is for people, and they're too used to, like, it's they've lived every day of their life eating this way. And it's like, well, yeah, but how can I take that step? That means giving away my whole life. That
Mhm.
it's so scary to change everything like that, right?
Mhm. I wonder if there's also a component that is that they just don't really think it's going to work. It sounds like a fad, and they just don't think it's going to work. And they've been so indoctrinated for so long
I
with misinformation. It's the quote attributed to Mark Twain is it's easier to fool the people than to convince them that they've been fooled. And I think that's where a lot of people are, is they just heard, you know, they've heard the fruits and the vegetables and the fiber and the whole
Mm.
grains for so long that they just can't even comprehend that those things are actually making them sick.
Yeah, they're kind of sitting there looking at you going, yeah, right. I tried every superfood Oprah told me to try and nothing worked.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um,
Change
so
is coming. I think change is
you think
coming.
so? Yeah.
I do. I mean, just look at the carnivore diet and how it is just exponentially sweeping across the world. I mean, literally almost everybody I meet, I don't eat out very often because the safest thing is what you fix at home. But on occasion, I will have a steak in a restaurant, and when I order it and order just the steak, order it plain, no sides, almost always the server will say, "Are you doing that carnivore diet?" This morning at church, I met a young woman, and in the conversation, I just let it drop that I'm a carnivore, and she said, "You only eat meat?" So almost everybody has heard about it. A lot of people have heard about it. Everybody knows somebody who's doing it. So my daughter's mother-in-law has a first cousin who's doing it.
Oh,
So
wow.
it's just everybody knows somebody who's doing it, and I just think you can't hide the truth for long. Yeah, there are just too many people. I mean, how many people have you interviewed at this point? Last time I heard, it was approaching 1,500.
Yeah, it's over 1,200
Yeah.
individuals. Yeah.
Okay. So, it, you know, um, back in the 70s, there was the shampoo commercial that was, you tell two people, and they tell two people, and they tell two people. It's spreading, and policies are changing. So it may not be overnight, but change is coming.
Yeah. I think the more that people understand how big food, big pharma, and everything works, the more they can kind of see, like, okay, so maybe everything is not as above board as I once thought it was, because before you just think, well, if the government's allowing them to sell these things, they must be okay for me, right? But when you actually look closely, it's not quite as straightforward as that.
Oh no, and I mean, I bought it hook, line, and sinker. I went to college, I got a degree, I learned these things, and until just over a year ago, I believed it all. It was only when I just stumbled onto what I found, the carnivore diet and all of the everything that's out there about it, that my eyes were opened and I began to see not only that I had been teaching lies all those years, but I began to understand why. I've never been a big conspiracy theorist, but I came to understand how much corruption there really is. And I mean, I bought it like everybody else.
Yeah. And I still, I still kind of, I still kind of feel a little bit like shaking my head whenever we have to preface everything by saying, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but, and, but. we're not actually talking, it's not a theory.
Yeah, right. It's there. There is no theory there. It has all been very much exposed.
Yeah.
Mhm. So it's out there. If people want to listen, if they want to look it up and read it and research, it's there.
Mm,
There is nothing hidden.
mm. So if people want to find you online, how can they do that?
The best way would be to go to my website, which is carnivorerd.com, and they can use the contact me form, and I read all of my emails, so they can reach out to me that way.
No problem. I'll link to your website in the show notes. Mary, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story and experience. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me. I have enjoyed our conversation.